Hey guys, MetalJesus here. Now this is the Commodore SX-64, the world's first color portable home computer. It was released in 1984 for $1,000, and by all accounts, it was a complete failure. So in this video, we're gonna walk through its features, talk about some of its quirks, and talk about why you may actually wanna buy one today. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and start off with its name. Now, commonly it's known as the SX-64, but that's not its name. That's actually its model number. Its actual name is called the Executive 64, or VIP in Europe. The Executive 64 was meant to be a new line of portable computers by Commodore, but as you see here in the manual, actually, the SX-64 was just one of two that were described. The second being a 2 floppy disk version called the DX64 that unfortunately never came out but was referenced in this manual. So I think a lot of people were like, well, you know, 1 disk is okay, but I actually want the 2 disk version, and so they waited and maybe contributed to the failure of this one. Now, this might have been considered portable by 1984 standards, but let me tell you, it is a back-breaking 23 pounds to carry around. It is big, it is boxy, it is heavy, and it's kind of hilarious when you compare it to what is modern today. Being that this thing is so heavy and so big and so boxy, it actually has a really nice, really sturdy handle built into it, but it's more than just that because it also functions as a stand, and it's pretty flexible. For instance, there's these 2 tabs that are on the top of it. Now, in the center position, it actually frees it up so that you can move it around and adjust it, and then you just push the tabs to lock it in place. It works really well. Like I mentioned in the intro, this is considered to be the very first color portable computer ever made, at least mass market. And as you can see here, it has a color television built into it. This is a 5-inch screen, and I gotta say, it's surprisingly clear. It looks fantastic in person. And just be aware, in this footage, you're gonna see lines drawn up and down on the television screen. That's the refresh rate, and my camera being out of sync with that. That just happens when you point a modern camera at an old school television like this. But again, I assure you in person, it looks super clear. And while we're on the subject of size and the bulk of this thing, well, I mentioned it has a floppy disk drive in here, right? Well, look at this. This is the original floppy disk drive that you would buy for a Commodore 64, the 1541. Look at how big this thing is. It's hilarious how large this is. I remember as a kid when I first got one of these things, I saved up for it, and I was like, this is as big as a computer, and it's just the drive. Yet they've crammed it into this portable device. One of the cool features of this is that the keyboard actually is built into the lid. So when it is attached to the front, it is protecting your screen and also most of the internals of the floppy disk drive, so it's very practical. And the way it works is there's a cable that attaches both to the keyboard and also underneath the portable computer, but you can remove that if you need to, like if, say, you're gonna go on a trip and you don't wanna have this cable dangling off there, and then you can store it actually on the inside in the storage area. I have to say though, one of the common complaints with this, and something to know if you ever end up buying one, is that the keyboards often get kind of sticky or finicky like mine here, where you basically have to really press down, sometimes multiple times, just to get a key to register on the screen. It's kind of annoying. It's something that affects a lot of these, and thankfully, because that keyboard can come off and is fairly easy to fix, you can either swap out for a good one, or you can basically have it repaired. I just haven't done that yet. One thing I noticed immediately when I turned this on is that it has its own custom version of the Commodore 64 operating system. You can see it right there. It's actually written out. And another thing is that the colors on the operating system are specific to this model, meaning it's actually that light blue on a white background. And the reason why they did that is hopefully to make the text stand out on that small screen. I mentioned the storage area before, and you can see it's labeled storage here. This is really interesting because this is where the second drive would go in that model that never came out. But in this version here, you can put, like I said, the cable in there, you could put cartridges in there if you want to, and also you can put floppy disks, although the floppy disks don't really fit if they have their protective sleeve on them, so you'd have to take them out of it, which I don't know if I'm comfortable doing. And then over to the right of that is something that is kind of hilarious by today's standards. Now, keep in mind, this has a real television built into it. And so it has this panel that opens up and exposes these settings like a real old school TV. So at the top, you can adjust the volume, and then below that, you have the vertical hold, you have contrast, you have brightness. You also can adjust the color, and there's tint, so you can really dial this in depending on maybe if the TV is getting old, or perhaps your eyesight isn't that great, or maybe even if you're colorblind. And you'll also notice this tiny little button right here. It's kind of hard to see, but that is a reset for the drive itself. So if it gets itself in a funky state where it's airing out, well, you can quickly push that and it resets it. Moving to the top is a cartridge slot, and I absolutely love this because despite it being advertised as an executive portable computer, Commodore never forgot its gaming roots. And so here on the top of it, in this little protective flap here, is where you can insert a gaming cartridge. And I actually played around with a bunch of Commodore cartridges plugged into this, and they all worked great. Now, if you don't have a lot of experience with older Commodore computers, just be aware that the floppy disk drives, at least in these early models, are incredibly slow. So it's really nice if you can get a game on cartridge because then it boots up immediately. I did try plugging in some of the accelerator cartridges that speed up the floppy disk drive on a real Commodore 64, hoping that they would work here, but sadly they didn't, which is kind of a bummer. Now let's move around to the back, and right off the bat, you'll see that there are two controller ports. Now, this is pretty interesting because your initial thought would be like, oh, this is great. Like you can do multiplayer games, right? You could have two people kind of huddled around this really small screen, but you'd be able to play your games. But that's actually not necessarily the case. There's this really funny quirk about the Commodore 64, and it's carried over to this. And that is, some games will use port 1, and others will use port 2. You actually have no idea when you first boot up the game whether it's going to use port 1 or port 2, unless it says on the back or whatever. But it's wild when you get into playing games on the Commodore because you never know if you're plugged into the correct port or not. So when they made this, they had to include 2 ports because you just wouldn't know. Can you imagine if Nintendo did that when they launched the original NES? Like every time you put a cartridge in, you just had no idea what controller port it would use. It's hilarious. Moving along, you have a video port, which I will demonstrate once we start playing some games. Serial port, a user port. This is where you plug in the power. And check this out, an old school fuse. Again, can you imagine that showing up in a modern Dell laptop? A big old fuse like that, it's hilarious. There is one important distinction between this and a real Commodore 64, and that is on the portable version here, they got rid of the cassette port. So the original Commodore 64, you could actually buy an external cassette drive and you would load games on that, which we really didn't do that much in the States. We'd moved over to the floppy disk, but over in Europe, they use primarily cassettes. And so it's important to know that if most of your game collection is on cassette, as far as I know, there's no way to get it to work on this device. All right, now let's go ahead and check out some games running on the Commodore SX-64. If you're new to using a Commodore 64 computer, it's going to be kind of weird having a command line instead of a graphical user interface, but I'm here to tell you that there are about 4 commands that you need to know for 90% of what you're going to do. Once you put the floppy disk in the drive, type in load space quote asterisk quote comma 8 comma 1, hit enter, and most of the time it's just going to auto launch the game. If it doesn't, type in run. That asterisk tells the Commodore to load the very first thing on the floppy disk. Now if that doesn't work, or if there's multiple programs on the disk, you can type in load space quote, $, quote, comma 8. That'll load up the table of contents, and then you can type list to actually see what's on that disk. And that's pretty much it. And as you can see, games look and run great on this thing. Now, again, it's a small 5-inch television, but it does look crystal clear in person. And you can see here, I'm loading up a bunch of games and checking them all out. It's funny going back to this because there are so many games released for the Commodore 64. It's crazy. I'm still discovering them all these years later. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, because there are estimates of 10,000 to 20,000 games and programs made for this system alone. It's crazy. Another thing that becomes painfully obvious is that a lot of these floppy disk games load so slowly. Not all of them. Some of them have actually acceleration built into them, but in general, you can wait several minutes just to load up the title screen. And that's why this portable computer having the cartridge slot is so awesome, because there are a lot of Commodore 64 games on cartridge and they load instantly. And don't forget, this supports an external monitor. So here is my Commodore monitor, set it next to it right here. Now, in general, you can do either composite or RGB. I only have on hand an actual composite cable, so that's what we're using here. Not the best quality, but it does give you an idea that, yeah, you don't have to look at that small screen if you don't want to. And this is one of the reasons why I like this particular model of Commodore probably more than all the others, because it is all built in and compact and put together, but yet it's flexible enough to have an external monitor if you want it. Now, there's one final quirk that I have to mention because it's hilarious, and that is it's manual. Obviously, a lot of computers come with manuals, but this one is pretty special. Check this out. So, obviously, like a lot of them, it has instructions on how to unpack it, how to get started, but then you get to chapter 3, and it starts jumping into how to program BASIC. Chapter 4, how to write simple programs. Chapter 5, advanced BASIC. But that's not good enough. Oh no, it's going to teach you how to do color graphics, how to create sprites. It's going to talk about how music is made, how sound effects are made, how you handle advanced data, and so much more. Can you imagine if a manual like this came out today? If you went and you bought a Dell computer running Windows and it taught you how to actually program your own games. It definitely is a sign of the times, and it's so wild to see. Now, I mentioned in the beginning of this video that this originally sold for $1,000 back in 1984. Now, what's really wild is it's actually held its value because collectors like me really do like it. So today, if you want to get one in really good condition, it's gonna set you back anywhere from $500 to $600. So just be aware, but again, collectors like me, I love the form factor of this. I love the fact it's so versatile and you can kind of take it anywhere. It's absolutely brilliant. So, love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you even have a Commodore 64? Are you in the market? And what are some of your favorite Commodore 64 games, of which there are many? All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. At the end here, I want to give a huge shout out to fellow YouTuber Doug DeMuro. If you're not familiar with his YouTube channel, he basically takes this concept of going through features and quirks, but he does it with cars, and specifically exotic sports cars. It's a fantastic YouTube channel. I've been a fan for years, and so to be quite honest, I actually take his style of doing that and applying it towards old computers, which seems to fit nicely. So hopefully he doesn't mind, and by all means, guys, definitely check out his channel if you are into cars. All right, guys, have a great day.